You're listening to Wolf Spirit Radio.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today at Answers from the Universe and the Andronicus transmissions. So you have another interesting day. I don't know what's going on, but we've had some little crazy weather here and there and some electrical issues and quite a storm last night. The wind blowing, it's one of those things where I thought that was going to take the house away, but not quite. Anyhow, I'm happy that I'm still able to do the show. I figured out a way to do it. And we'll just keep moving on and see how things turn out. But either way, I've been browsing through some of the messages of people that leave, after the transmissions, and people have their remarks and so forth. And I've found some of it interesting. I really like the comment. Someone thought that it was a lot of fun listening in, and some people say, well, you guys, you're not really serious. If you were really serious, then we would see it as more disclosure or more information that you're bringing forward. And then others think, well, it's nice when you're happy and you're laughing and it's fun, to listen to JP and I have a discussion about something. And, then there's others that are like, well, how come it takes so long to get into the transmissions? And so there's all those different types of feedback. And I thought, well, that's interesting how people are perceiving things. But for me, I really like to keep it light. There's a lot of serious things out there, and I'm sorry if it takes away from the seriousness of the message. It's not intended to, and just because we read it as a dialogue doesn't mean that it wasn't channeled. It just means that we have a very gifted person here, JP, who actually channels their persona and their voices quite well, so well that it kind of sets me back at times. So I just, for many of you understand, but there's a few that seem to be struggling over it, and also leaving messages for those that are new at this and don't know much about the Andronicus transmissions, don't understand it fully. Yes, I did channel and connect with Andronicus a few years back while I was doing a session with someone, and he has been with me ever since, and we have been communicating regularly. And I at least have a message once a week, sometimes more, but from working with him, then others had opened up from there. So I keep on explaining this every now and then for those of you that have heard this before. The reason why I'm saying it is particularly because there are new people coming in and they're trying to wrap their heads around it. And to make things a little easier, JP, tell them what you did. We had Martin Zanier. He ended up putting together, taking all of the transmissions. He's a wonderful human being. He's very wonderful. Thank you, Martin. Took the transmissions and just cut out just those pieces from the audio, and then JP just recently put a whole bunch of them together. JP, maybe you can explain a little.
Yeah, it's like having a sous chef who chops and peels your vegetables, and then the chef themselves throws the vegetables into the soup in the right order and everything. With much gratefulness to Martin. So what he did is to basically go through each of the shows. And up to now, there's more than 112 of them. There's at least 115. And just the transmission without us chatting or doing what we're doing right now. So he then put them all in folders. And so, the first thing that I did, I took the first 10 Andronicus transmissions and hooked them all end to end. And topped and tailed them, said with a little announcement, sounds like a BBC man. And then, that's like a 90-minute thing. So I'm wondering, we should do like audio on demand or something like that, or I don't know. but maybe we should do it just again for free. But it might be a thing you could, it might be something to sell as opposed to give away. What does everybody think? I can see everybody's clicking their don't like button now. No, don't do that. Give it free. So, so basically, I've got 2 compilations now. I've got the first 10 and the second 10. And it's about Andronicus 23 when things start to get interesting, when all these other people start coming in, when Rhodan starts communicating with you individually. I think, was it Rhodan the first one? I should just have a look, really.
Yeah, Rhodan's the first one, but he does have interactions with some others. This is when he gets into the alternate reality, and he has it out with Zamfir and Neptune. And when he goes into this other reality, Rhodan meets him there. And then, he ends up going to this planet where Rhodan's at, and then they get questioned because he alters time. Mm-hmm. So that's the key, the pivotal point. Up until then, Andronicus is just floating through time, having his own experience, encountering the Titans, not liking the Titans at first. No. And, and then he finds that he has to travel with them because something's happening to the planet that they were on. And so it just goes in, and it goes from bad to worse as far as his experience. And you kind of hear him talking through it like, I don't know why it's going on like this or what I have to deal with. They don't want to go into stasis, and then as soon as they get to Neptune, they're like, hey, wow, this is kind of a cool place. We can jump in there. And it's, they're very naive, very similar to if humans were to be traveling. I mean, this happened way, way, way back in time. I can't even tell you the time when, I don't even think we have a date. And so, but it's similar to, humans going out and exploring different planets, very much like Star Trek. You don't really know what you're going to encounter because you're the one that's exploring. And so that nothing's mapped out. You have no idea of what type of species are there. You have to do an assessment, probably see what kind of, compound they're made of, carbon-based or other type of structure. And so all this stuff is happening. And, I'm by far an expert in any of it, but I do know, from what he shared with me, how these things turn out. And it's very similar to the way our lives kind of, you get into a situation. I'll say it like that. You get into a situation and then you try to figure your way out and you want it to just go back to the way it was and that it's okay, but it doesn't always work that way. So that's what happens to, Andronicus when he encounters Rhodan. And then all these other things start spinning off of it and all of these others show up. So it's very, very interesting to say the least. But this is an opportunity for people to just kind of feel like they can get a handle on it and kind of, go through it. And it is labor intensive. And I think that's why JP is talking about maybe, a donation or something to defray the time and effort of making sure that you guys get what you need. And I mean, this is all eventually going to be with a book with notes and everything. And I started doing that as well. So, if you guys believe in this work and you enjoy it and you're getting information and data and in order to help me to continue doing this, and I've been living on a shoestring to make sure that I get the information through to share with everyone. And I know that I've had a few comments that people have referred to me as being full of myself or ego or whatever. And, I don't know. You can step in my shoes and you tell me how ego-filled you feel at this point because you're kind of at a beck and call for these beings. They tell you who they are, but it's very lackluster. You don't really feel like you're on the top of the world in it by any means. I don't feel bad for myself, but I do feel like it's more of a sacrifice than it is like I'm some kind of celebrity or have some kind of prestige. I feel just the opposite. I feel very humbled and here to help. And another side note too is that someone's made comments about me wearing a Wonder Woman t-shirt. And which, if you listen to the show often, you understand that I have a sense of humor, and JP as well. And we kind of, obviously, vicariously living our dreams as children, in that fun
and
little
we love dressing
superhero
up.
world. Yeah,
We love dressing up.
I love Halloween, and I'm just having fun. And someone made a comment that Wonder Woman is connected to the Cabal because if you turn the two W's sideways, it makes two threes, and it's Masonic. And it's really a stretch. I don't understand. And it's there was an article that came out about this, and it was really cutting down Wonder Woman and, being a strong female. I think it's more of an attack on the divine feminine. And that also should be looked at because, why is it that someone that's a strong female is being called the Cabal, but not Batman or Robin or Superman or anything like that? So I don't know. It's kind of weird. It's just like super weird. And people have said you should be careful because I think it was WikiLeaks of all things. I'm like, well, what are they talking about? But, I don't know. Maybe they should focus on things that have more meaning rather than, that I know that they say that a lot of the Cabal is trying to manipulate things through children and DC Comics or whatever. Maybe they do have an agenda. Maybe they're just part of the system, and kind of the symbology and everything is kind of floating out there, people picking up on it. But we do need to clear a lot of this. But anyhow, I thought I'd have some more clarity on that. I'm trying to think if there was any other issues that needed to be addressed. But either way, I do want you to give me some feedback. I'd like to know what you're thinking. And it is important to me. I don't feel like, even someone says, oh, you shouldn't respond. Sometimes they're haters or whatever. And I'm like, well, that's fine. Maybe that's for their perspective. And I think if I was on the other end, maybe I would think so too, but I'm willing to talk about it. It doesn't matter. This information is for all of you. It's not just for me, or it's not for anyone in particular, but, I think that you can glean a lot of good stuff out of this. So, that's kind of my vent for today. My rant and rave, I guess. Call it that. So,
well,
JP,
Jess, I think, it's something that is really important, but it's important for you to be in a comfortable situation at the very least, don't you think?
Yeah.
So, I think, it would be, well, look, we'll find out. Maybe if people can suggest it, actually, Vanessa has, of course, suggested it. Yeah, maybe the edited version can be sold with the book, so you can hear them spoken as well as read them.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
Like you get a CD with a disc, or actually a chip. You just put a little a little SD card that's preloaded SD card in with the book. That'd be nice. You can put it in your phone. You can put it anyway. So we have rather a few communications today, haven't we?
Yeah, we do. We have. Well, it's interesting. It's like I told you, Gary's been speaking to me off and on throughout the week.
Yeah.
I like Gary. He's funny. That guy, a little guy. I'll say a little guy. I don't want to insult him, but he's. And we have we have
Rose Violet
later too.
Rose Violet. Jessica, you are the best. You cannot please everyone. Keep your loving perspective. There are more than love you than show hate. That's true.
Yeah, and even those that show hate, maybe it's not hate. They're just really asking, trying to figure it out. One other thing, JP, I think you like this one. Someone said, I listened to the show. I get it. a couple of hippies smoking a blunt and then writing a bunch of stuff out.
As if.
I said,
As if.
I know. I did have to laugh. I mean, it's wacky stuff, but hey, that's not happening either.
It's a funny thing, but people will find any excuse to make it like, to minimize it, and, if it is a bit of fun, it's a great bit of fun. If it's educational, it's fun educational. That's the way I see it. Because it's, in a way, like you said before, yes, indeed, it is disclosure, of a kind that we weren't expecting to be disclosed, but there we are. These are some of the beings that have, these are some of the beings that have been behind the scenes and indeed sometimes in the limelight, over the millennia. It's fascinating to hear their own personal perspective rather than the historian perspective.
Right. And you know what? If I have to do anything and I don't enjoy it, I'm not doing it.
Absolutely. And that's
the
gauge of a soul
world.
work. Yeah.
We all left the corporate world to not have to be in that rut and misery. So I know that these are serious topics, and I don't want to take away from that at all. But I do want you to listen to these messages and take the information in, because things are happening on the planet. They really are. I mean, we were supposed to have some really bad things happen so far, and some bad things did happen, but they were supposed to be worse. So we're doing, everyone's doing their best, and in a unified way, we're all making these big changes. No one person is doing it. No one being is doing it. This is all an agreement of the human consciousness. So we have some good news today. But we're going to start off with Andrew and see what Andrew has to say.
Okay, here we go. Oh yeah, by the way, only this week in the UK does Andronicus transmissions start at 8 o'clock. Next week it'll be back to its regular 9 p.m. UK time, 'cause of Nightmare Week. I actually got it right. I don't think I haven't lost anybody yet. Actually, we did lose Shari Edwards yesterday, but I don't think that was because of daylight. But anyway, all's well that ends well, and let's go over to I made a few mistakes of helping those who abused power, but I have it under control. There needs to be some type of change. I will no longer do the things I have done in the past. I will no longer change what doesn't need to be changed. I will no longer alter things because I am bored to see the outcome. I will watch the flux and flow of things with great reverence and remember why I am here and not violate those causes of change. I now see the wisdom in some of the changes that took place on their own, and the flow and course of water as it runs through a stream and empties out into a canyon or flows into a river. I will not and could not imagine how wonderfully things resolve themselves without unnecessary intervention. I will further, without my suggestion to the balance of life, and allow and see... I will further...
Go ahead.
I will further, without my suggestion to the balance of life, and allow and see how things flow naturally and sequentially as it's truly supposed to. We revert now back to non-time. Our experience is now over. Now, just for the record, you were not our experiment. We had to intervene on your behalf as a species while you had moments of slumber. The loud, boisterous humans who took roles of subordination upon your planet were merely wake-up calls to the obstinate and callous way of living. They need to remember who they are, and the only way for them to do that is to see the contrast, the darkness of life, the cruel and the unwilling rulers. Then they know not. Then they know not how to be in order to work more evenly with the collective. How you can be a galactic species without knowing how to get along with your own species. This is the first and foremost. However, according to the great divide of all knowing, you have surpassed all your predecessors and have moved on to the next level. Humanity is no longer betwixt the void of conquer or be conquered. Your awareness has now arisen past the gate of a subordinate species. You have lifted your heads, your thinking, your heart space into a plethora of God-force matter waiting to be unfolded into new truths of understanding. It is wonderful. So in matters of concern or lack of concern, my work is now done here. Shall I arise into a new form of being? To experience life in an unconquerable way of my own endeavors, or shall I roam about like a man who has lost his home in a desolate land of hopelessness? I shall experience the latter. This is your last message from the one you know as Andrew. My adventure begins in a faraway land called Andromeda. Isn't this exciting?
Andrew, I know what happens here. This is when I find you as Andronicus.
No. Don't tell me the outcome. Bye for now. Uh-huh. So, he's in the future or is he well in the past?
He's in the past, but somehow jumps to his existence as Andronicus. I know, I was surprised when he did this. Remember, Andrew was always Andronicus, but he is before Andronicus.
The pre-Andronicus. So perhaps he was Andrew.
Andronicus.
Perhaps he is Andrew originally, and then he becomes 8, 7, 8, 3, 5, 6, or whatever he becomes. And then when he comes back to claim a name, he calls himself Andronicus, which is like a bigger version of Andrew, isn't it? Well,
yeah.
I think. I don't know. Just speculating.
It is interesting. It's something to look at.
Who knows? So.
After many experiences of Andronicus. I mean, when I have these conversations, I'm like, wow, it just happened. What am I looking at? It's all very interesting.
I remember 2 years ago you were very shy and you were all very, working with all the paranormal guys and they were all bullying you around, and that's just fantastic to see you completely come into your own power and stature. Your own Wonder Woman beingness. It so suits you.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about these kind of bullying type of men, but it's crazy. It's just like, all right, I'm stepping out of this.
Yeah,
I don't know. But they have to find, like I'm very agreeable and I get along, but then there's a time when I say, well, I just don't want to be in this tug of war here. I if you really need that much space, take it all. And I'll find my own little corner in the world. And then that's what I did. But, it's not just about male or female. It's about, knowing who you are and why you're here. And people that don't fully know that feel that they need to kind of push others aside and try to, fight for things that they don't need to fight for. There's room for everybody, right?
Well, it's interesting that this, right, what Andrew was saying, let's, just have a quick peep into this, because what he was saying is, I am not going to interfere anymore. And he always used to fiddle about with things. Mate, actually, if this is Andrew, then that's his character. He's a fiddler. He will never not fiddle. So he's made all these promises. I'm not going to fiddle with anything. And then he becomes Andronicus, who fiddles with everything, including green women from Neptune.
That's what Andronicus does.
Yeah, that's his thing.
Yeah, that's his personality. It's more of a curiosity, I think.
Yeah.
I don't think it's to dominate. He gets into the point of domination as Zeus, but he was the hollow man then. But he wasn't, always hollow. I mean, he was more like a child and kind of with a magnifying glass looking at plant life. and trying to figure out, butterflies and all this other stuff. So, that's the way I see him. Pretty easygoing and probably the type of person that most people wouldn't have any problem saying hello to or talking to briefly.
You
know.
I was going to say a nerdy botanist.
Yeah.
But there was another line that very important. Tim Good picked up. Wow, our awareness has risen past a subordinate conquer or be conquered species. We're beyond duality, is saying.
Yeah.
That's very good news.
It is. He's saying that we've changed. So that means they changed. So as they're observing us, we're evolving. And this is the good news that's coming through all the hard work and the focus and attention on different things that are going on in the planet. And they're saying that we have shifted. We've moved. And so, and it's universal. The others are saying it as well. So you'll see, Rhodan has a really nice message about it also. And he's the one that brought it in first, and then Andrew talked to me afterwards, but I haven't said it in this proper sequence.
Right.
So
who's next?
Andronicus, let's talk to him directly and see
what he says.
Yeah. This is him now.
Okay. So, Andronicus is speaking from the current time, parallel to us, yeah?
Parallel to us, but there's something that he's involved in that I think happens earlier in time. So, it's really hard to follow them 100%. I don't always know exactly when and how, but, you'll see, you'll understand, and we'll talk about it after you read it.
Okay. Five stood by my side when 2000 left. It has been a hard reality for me to experience. I thought so many more were devoted to me. Guess I was wrong. I helped all of them. I kept them alive and made sure they had enough supplies, food, shelter and protection. Now that all the problems are gone, they have left, all of them except for 5 men. I didn't know it would happen this way, but I guess I would let them go instead of holding them here and seeing them being unhappy.
Where are you now, Andronicus?
I'm at the crossroads again, and I don't know what direction to attend to. I suppose it doesn't really matter where I go. I want to return to being a journeyman when things were simple. I want to sit by the campfire and watch the sunrise on your planet. I want to visit and explore new vistas and see the animal and plant life there, mingle with other species and discover flavors of life on other galaxies. The food sources are many. Not all is consumable for humans. Some, if one needs to adapt to, but interesting at that. You know, many of your foods were a collection of different types of plants brought together to create a fruit. You know, many of your foods were a collection of different types of plants brought together to create a fruit large enough beyond the size of a berry. The vegetables were groomed to grow in scale to accommodate the species' needs for nutrients. The soil was carefully measured and balanced to bring forth mineral-rich foods that do well with every species and on all habitable planets.
You've changed the topic a bit. Do you want to explain what this mission was?
It is when I lost my men to Dionysus. It is when he takes over the planet Jupiter. They don't like my leadership. They chose him instead of me because he was more fierce and barbarian. They chose him because he gave them a strong drink and didn't want them to change their way of thinking of a more civilized nature. Dionysus is desolate in many ways. He lured them in, and many of them I will never see again. I didn't think they could cause much harm in this most harsh planet of Jupiter. I don't mind that it was my planet. I don't care much for ownership, only connections to life. All that which is alive is love and is good, is what I need near me, what I want near me.
But the others, they were seduced to go with him. Couldn't you have stopped it?
I tried to tell them there was a better way. It is done. It's over for many of them. They chose the path of warfare and domination.
Maybe some can be recovered.
Maybe.
We all make choices, you know. We all choose to align with the truth or be lured in by the lies. that appeal to our desires of ego. It is a part of the learning experience.
That is also true. Okay, go now. I will amend the ways of the past. You keep strong in the time of your future. We will all gather in the end. Aww, he's feeling a bit down. Got no fans. Billy no mates.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's probably best, with followers like that, who needs sabotage?
Yeah.
If they're all going to be dominant and bossy and all that stuff.
I agree. I know. I mean, we want those around us that really want to be with us and, are willing to take the trip together. And I think some of those men return back to him. I have a strong feeling. And I think they see the madness of Dionysus, as he chose to do some of the things that he was doing. But we'll see.
So we have an unfamiliar name here, or two unfamiliar names here.
Yeah.
Where are we going next?
See. Hold on, let me see. My computer's not working well.
So, nice, easy, laid back afternoon.
Yep. Okay, see. We did, okay. Alright, so, why don't we do Rhodan?
The time is right for you now. We have waited a very long time to see some of the changes we see there on the planet. There is a light, a sparkle, a luminescence of colour that has not been seen since the birth of its or inception of life there. You are the ones we have been waiting for. You were strong when all else was against you. We hoped you would scale this mountain as no other generation has ever scaled it. It is a momentous occasion for us. We are jubilant that the human race has taken a step beyond the level of limited expansion. You have collectively now moved into a space of unlimited consciousness and are now open to the vastness of understanding. It was a great accomplishment. I don't know if you understand fully what has just happened. You have lifted beyond the veil into a sense of knowing some of our truths. Humans collectively are now seeing beyond the ego and can further relate to the harmonic field of light, of sound, of vibration and scale. It is an awakening to their inner knowing and understanding of how the unified field connects all to the central focus of one. One light, one sound, one tone, one vibration, and then a shift like none other. It has happened. It is done. And you did it. We could not have done this for you. You had to do it by yourself. You had to do it with intention to change beyond what was. I will admit, we helped a bit by removing everything in your way that limited your vision of possibilities. Some of it was so deceitful that it never appeared naturally. Some of you stepped out into regions unknown and stopped the mighty fortress that held back the love of the divine. Some of you stood firm in the midst of a fire. Some of you stood strong in the winds of chaos. Some of you stood firm in the midst of hopelessness and breathed back hope into the void. I waited for you to rise up. I knew you would choose to be here at this time and in this incarnation to change the fate of this planet. I believed in you when no one else did, and I loved you with unconditional love. Not as your God, but as your friend. Remember me. I stood with the wind at my back to find all of you. And it was worth it. I am pleased to be here. I'm pleased to know all of you. I have heard many call out to me, and I remember you. I remember all of you as my friends. You still have further to go, but rest for a while until the next wave comes. The next wave, though difficult, opens many doors. Until next time, be in peace, my friends. Wow. Beautiful. Beautiful.
It is beautiful. Yeah, I was very, very affected by it in a positive way. It's really nice.
And, all through the series, Rhodan has always, he's always taken care of even the most outrageous species. And,
Yeah.
There were times when I can't remember who it was, everybody was fed up with one group. And Rhodan says, no, I'll look after you. And of course they went wrong again. Oh, it was Hera's lot, wasn't it? Hera.
Yeah.
Yep. But when he says, I believed in you when no one else did, and I loved you with unconditional love, not as your God, but as your friend. I tell you that, my eyes are streaming with tears reading that. Beautiful.
And that was, apparently that we've been trying to get out of this loop, and they're telling me that we did. We finally passed through. And the reptilians had tried to stop us in the past, and it was, the draconians and all the different negative species that we had to encounter, the tall whites, the tall grays, the zetas, just a whole gamut of them that try to keep us in this consciousness, not to mention some of the other alternate species. And the Gorgons, too, is another group that no one really talks about much, but, that's something that I've had to encounter. And then there's, of course, the rogue groups, the rogue Pleiadians, the rogue Arcturians, those that were supposed to be in the light or supposed to be helping us, that some of their groups went rogue. And like the 12D Pleiadians and so forth. So I stopped trusting and I just started observing, stopped putting my head into that thought process of, who was good and who was bad. It was, cause the good can be bad and the bad can be good sometimes, right? So I just started observing to see who was doing what. And then we discovered that group, the Elgrek, the frog beings that were allowing alternate beings to come in and bring in those lasers that were hitting the planet. Because we could not even see a craft. Could not even see a craft involved in these lasers that were causing these fires. And that was a very, very strange thing. And then I realized they were going in and out of our dimension. So there were alternate beings coming from the other dimensions, but the Elgrek were around the ancient builders, and they had the keys to allow other species to get through, and they have no allegiance to any group in particular. So a lot has happened. A whole lot has happened. Humanity didn't have much of a chance without some of the things needing to be removed, but humanity naturally aligns with the God source. It's not a big struggle as people think. I think all of humanity is naturally, connected, and we are part of the God seed and, of all the light that exists. And all we need to do is just like hooking into the internet, hooking into the channel, the frequency, and we're right there. So everything was blocking those channels and those frequencies, and so they didn't have much of a chance. And I'm not to say that we're 100% innocent, but we were not in a place of condemnation or we were accused of everything and said that we did these things to ourselves. But I think, in my opinion, I've seen otherwise. And to me, it's been proven to me that that's not the case. And I will always be the biggest advocate for humanity and when I encounter any other species in the galactic field or even the universe, because of what I've seen, and I've seen the interventions of both good and bad as well. But either way, at the end of the day, it's fine if people just are connected in, and I'm happy to see that, and we're all happy to see that, and everyone had the intention to be there, so everyone took part in this, which is fantastic, and it was great news for me to hear Rhodan say that. So, anyhow, any other thoughts, JP?
Just getting my composure back.
Yeah.
No, that really was a very deep feeling there. So, who's next?
Who's next? Rhodan, Andronicus, Andrew. We had, the Triforce Conglomerate came through. I don't know if you remember them. Actually, this is the first time I brought it to, this is the first time I ever brought it to the Andronicus transmissions. The first time they came through was when I was doing Viking, the show with Viking on, the Interstellar Galactic Council. And, I can't even find what I wrote there.
1, 2, 1. Oh, sorry.
Oh. Is there, the audio off?
Yeah, sorry, I've just muted my mic. I have, I'm just testing, I have a potential voice for the Triforce, just a multi-track voice. Yeah. So,
okay.
Just testing that out.
Sure. So, anyhow, the first time I ever read it, and I cannot find what I wrote there. It was almost like I wrote it, and it's really strange, because typically when I write something, I have it, and I must have written it down somewhere. I just can't locate where it is. And whatever happened with that message is probably recorded. Not in this most recent show with Viking, but I think it was the 2 shows before, maybe. But anyhow, they come from the area of Orion. There's a group of 3 different species that have learned to join together. They're non-aggressive. They work with harmonics and sound. They're here to support the planet, but we're more retreating and in the background because of the particular energy of the hostility of the Orion Greys and some of the others that were quite aggressive, but have been always there in the background, kind of trying to help out. And this is the message that they gave me for today.
The Triforce Conglomerate Group. Greetings. Upon our observation, we are here to assist you in your further workings with consciousness. We have been in the background, but will be glad to assist you in all the changes you desire to make. All the changes you desire to make. We can help you grow to the heights you desire to grow to. We can also help you to help others around you. Our benevolence is vast and wide. We don't see any barriers between us and the divine truth. We would also like to help you achieve this. Understand fully that we are teachers and not your leaders, and that we will be available if you call upon us. The delegates are about to embark upon your planet. It will make our presence more accessible. Just so you understand us better, we are here to assist you. We are not a warrior species and have avoided war with Orion Greys for many years. Our collaboration made us safe from all conquests. We would like to share our tactics of peace and harmonious truths that prevent conflict and reactions to hostile aggressions. We have never been in servitude to any other civilization, and we are looking for ways to create mediation of understanding beyond the galactic realm. We have selected you to be one of our representatives. representatives on the planet. I hope you consent to this role.
Absolutely. This is exactly what we have been striving for. I would be more than happy to deal with a benevolent group who has our highest interest in mind, and would also cut off any group that does the contrary. As long as you uphold your intentions to help us, I will be in agreement with you.
The Triforce Conglomerate is always here to assist. We applaud your hard work in supporting the planet. All of you are ready to take the next step forward. There we go.
Yeah.
So.
Very good.
The mic stand kept falling down. It's, you know,
Power of the Triforce.
I know, it's a Triforce the tripod conglomerate. So anyway, yes, here we are. That's quite interesting. So they are...
That's what they call themselves. I don't make up these names. Like,
the Triforce Conglomerate. Well, I mean, it sounds like some sort of corporation, doesn't it?
It does, but the first time I said it, I remember Viking kept on changing the name, and I don't think he felt comfortable with it, but I don't change. I figured that that's what they want to call themselves, and if they want to call themselves some kind of name, there's a reason for it. And it's like, you know, I'll tell someone what my name is and expect that that's what they're going to refer to me to, rather than, you know, coming up with another name that they think is more suitable for me, which is somewhat rude, right?
Well, you know, they have been calling you Suma.
They do, but yeah, that's how they remember me, but it was one of my names, not like an assumed name, how they want to, you know, put me in a box. So, anyhow.
So, that was the Triforce Conglomerate. Interesting.
Yeah, and you made it sound like a collective.
Yeah,
like,
there's what's called a unison, control. It's actually the voice of Eric, but with the pitch turned down to normal. If you see what I mean.
I like Eric. And well, what about Gary?
Well, Gary, hang on. This is the voice, right? So, this is a Triforce,
and I turn it up a little bit, and it becomes Gary. And then I turn it even more, and then it becomes Eric, you see.
And then I turn it down.
I turn it down a little bit.
Was that Kraton, or who was that?
That becomes Kraton, and then I turn it down further, and then that becomes Yggdrasil, or what's the tree called? Wyman.
Wyman?
So it's all very subtle. It's like, you know, 1 minute.
What about Tectotron? What did you do for Tectotron?
Oh, what was Tectotron? He was something like this.
More metal sounding.
Yeah, he had a more flangey sort of phase sort of sound. Hang on. 1, 2. There's a much more tight chorus here. This would be much more like a mechanical sort of sounding voice, isn't it? This would be more of a technical.
It's like M3. M3 came through. He was a time traveler or a super soldier, and he called himself M3.
All right. Did he speak like this?
He's up at the planet. Yeah, well, not so much that his voice was mechanical, but maybe like through technology he was communicating to me.
I see.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Every time I do that, I knock my mouse off the table.
Those pesky mice.
Cordless mice as well, so I can't catch it by its tail. Anyway, there we go. We have the mice back. Everything's back in order. Who's that? William? Oh, all right. Oh, very good. Very good. Right. Okay.
Got some good information.
Yeah, somebody just sent me a message. Good producer stuff. Excellent. So now,
cool.
let us move on to the next transmission. Aries.
We had, and I was kind of delayed on Aries. Aries kind of threw me off. He's someone that I've been upset at for a while, and it's almost a little bit like the movie of Wonder Woman, where Wonder Woman has it out with Aries.
All
but
right.
it doesn't get violent. It's a
So
conversation.
this is a slightly more congenial
Civil.
version. Yeah, civil version.
Yeah.
I don't think I was.
Yeah.
What
I'm
caused
not
his...
going to go out and start blowing things up. But, but he did show up and he was very confused. And he's done some bad things because he, had an alliance with Dionysus. And we know what Dionysus did. And remember, they blocked the Bifrost beings. So, and then they got the Rigelians involved. And the Rigelians did a whole bunch of garbage. I mean, I don't even want to talk about them. I really dislike them. And, then they went in and, you know, created this environment where they could do whatever they wanted without anyone overseeing, you know, anyone watching, observing, you know, it was like lawless. I'll say it like that. And so Ares did his own thing. Dionysus obviously, you know, everything ran amok. You know, it just was a mess. So, here I am in the kitchen getting a tea or something. I don't know. And he shows up and here's the conversation.
Who are you? What are you doing here?
You know who I am, Ares. What have you been up to?
Why is that she-devil around you? I thought I got rid of her. She made my life miserable and I couldn't get far enough away. I'm sorted in my mind. What has been happening to me? It's like decaying of rotting flesh. I have wounds that won't go away. I'm getting weary of the battle.
Finally. You've done a lot of harm. You and Dionysus have wreaked havoc galactically.
Titans. The bloody Titans confuse me. I don't know if I'm up or down. What happened to Mars?
Don't focus on him now. You've done enough damage already. There's no more excuses for you to lay blame on him. He did not participate in all of your efforts of dominion.
I'm dying. The lifelong blood is getting thin, leaking at the very essence of myself into all spaces. If it continues this way, well, you know, my essence is spread out like a mighty fury. You don't want to do that, do you?
You've chosen to fracture yourself throughout misdeeds of darkness. You had chosen to align with the alternate realities. Now look at you, lost and confused about who you are and why you were here in the first place. The only thing you focus on now is the she-devil and blinded by everything else. Let it go. Put yourself back together and correct the problems you've caused.
I've split in 4 directions. 2 went to the darkest elements, the other 2 went mainstream, and I don't know what else to say. I thought I could have a fun shutting down the control systems of the sun, but it didn't work. Things became lopsided, altered, and then the alternate one came in. I lost control. It's hard to admit, but I don't want it this way anymore. That she-devil was a torment to everyone. She is one of the many I have to remove to make things right again. I'm pulling myself back together again.
Then Ares drew in 4 aspects of himself and flew straight up like a rocket into the sky and began to rearrange things back to the way that they were. Yep, it was about like that. It looked like a rocket going up. I think, you know, if you remember, Tectotron had Ares. Do you remember that? He had Ares, then he was calling him Adrian. It was really weird.
Oh, Adrian. I remember Adrian.
Yeah, do you remember that?
Because there was some Adrian in recently, wasn't there? Someone's friend or something. There's been Adrian around.
They keep on bringing in all these different ones, and even for me it gets confusing at times. But I do remember that he was connected somehow to Tectotron, and I think he split himself up in 4 different directions, 4 different aspects of himself, and then he just became more and more confused. So, and I don't know who the she-devil was. He said she was around me. So, obviously in another dimension. but it's someone
Presumably.
that he's had some problems.
So that's is nothing to do with the actual people in your life that you might be having trouble with.
Oh, maybe I'm having trouble with some people in my life, but maybe that this is the director behind it. I don't know. Not a lot. I don't have a lot of conflict. I usually try to be somewhere in the middle. But, I think this one is more of a thorn in his side than mine. I wonder if it is the Hera energy. Cause, she's very suspicious and is watching to make sure that I'm not with Andronicus. I think she's still watching over that. And I'm not, obviously, but we'll see. Probably it will, in time, we'll figure it out. I have a feeling he's going to take care of it. So I'll let him deal with these beings that he opened the door and let out. And if he doesn't, I'm going to send them to him. You deal with this.
This is yours. Please deal with it.
Yeah. Take
Little post-it
ownership.
notes.
Mm-hmm.
Like post-it notes in the fridge. Not Jessica's.
This is not my stuff. Here, I'll send her back to you.
So, this Aries, is that the same Aries as in the sign Aries? The astrological.
Yes.
All
But
right.
Aries is not Mars. Everyone, cause you look at the Greek and the Roman and you say, well, that's like Zeus is Zeus in Greece, but Jupiter in the Roman mythology.
Right.
And they say that, Mars is, I think, in Greece and then Aries, but they're not the same. They're completely different, but on most occasions, they are like, Zeus is Jupiter, but in this case, Aries and Mars are not the same.
It's
And
interesting
I don't know
because
how that happened.
because also, as Zeus is Jupiter. Andronicus is somehow responsible for Jupiter, although he seems to be kind of rather lackadaisical about being in charge of a whole planet. He's rather of a garden, I think.
And I don't think he wants to be tied to anything. He just kind of gets up and goes. And, he knows what belongs to him, but I think after his whole, I think if he becomes like a megalomaniac or anything like that, and I think he did that when he, the earlier years of being Zeus was because he was trapped. And he was not happy and was kind of when he was the Hollow Man, he wasn't feeling anything and he had a conflict with Rhodan. And he didn't want to be there and he was stuck in that hollow tube. And that was the only time that you really see Andronicus out of control. Otherwise, he gets along with everyone and he sort of reminds me a little bit of that guy from Kung Fu who just goes from one place to another and fits in. And, especially during the hippie movement, he was around kind of traveling through our planet. And, people wouldn't know his age. They wouldn't know who he was and what he was. He'd probably join in with whatever they were doing, and when he's finished, then he would just disappear, and they would see him as a drifter. And then the Voynich book, manuscript that, had all this, flowers and all sorts of botany and everything. I was like, as soon as I saw that, I said, oh, I know who did that. And of course a language that they can't figure out what it is and just little like hidden messages. So, all sorts of things like that.
So, shall we
Meetis.
meet with Meetis?
Yes.
Back here. Let's see. Hello, my friend. It has been a long time since I've trusted anyone. I do have many kind people around me who care and love me, but I can't bring many close because of my circumstances. At times I feel alone and isolated. I miss being with others in the truth of my being. I have to hold back and not reveal my feelings. My stories are always in the third person, as if talking about historical happening or experiences of another.
I know. We've discussed this before. Are you okay, Meetis?
Well, I'm not sure. Something has changed. It's not just a run-of-the-mill experience today. Even the sky looks odd. My hands seem to be moving in and out of dimensions. It just seems off a bit. Maybe my life force wants to go and merge elsewhere. I can't quite put my finger on it. Hold on now. We're drawing in closer to something new. I will wear gloves to not get too distracted by it all. I also keep looking at my hands and they may question what's wrong with me if I do it too often. I feel a bit self-conscious. There, it's happening again, to me. My hands are seeming a bit transparent a bit. I'll close my eyes and count to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Oh, it's not going away, my love. What to do? I'm in flux now, burning in and out of time like a flickering flame on a candle by a crack in the door letting in the draught. I'm ill in a multitude of sorts. Drifting.
Meetis, are you okay?
I'm not well, my love. I feel off and confused by so many things right now.
Do you think you're stepping out because of your unhappiness?
Oh, maybe so, my flower. I stepped out too far. Look, there's a snag on my top coat. That wasn't there before.
Are you sure? Maybe it happened without you realizing it.
No, I'm positive. Somebody took my coat and was probably portraying himself as me.
Do you know who would have done that?
Dionysus. He's the only one who would do something like that and have the ability to take power from me.
How did he find you?
From you, maybe. You've had many encounters with him in the alternate route.
It's true, but I will feel terrible if he did anything bad to you. He's a madman for sure.
Hold on, I think I can find the thread that leads to him. The Baphomet, his dirty yard worker. The sot-and slimy gizzard. I'll see to it if he is banished. I'll see to it he's banished from these parts. I heard he had something to do with the London fire, the Paris fire, the New Orleans fire. The list goes on. The thread leads to him. I know what to do. Hold your tongue a bit and don't say a word about to him. Let me take matters into my own hands. After all, this is my courtyard and the area of dominion. Can I not shell it out how I like it?
Are you sure you don't want me to watch your back as you do it? You can be a nasty one at that. Watch for his fellows as well. The creepy, dark creepy ones.
No, yeah, I know. This is something I'm quite well at. Taking down defences and ruffling the feathers. Come now, don't worry any further about that. I must get a new jacket. Wouldn't want that black slime on me. It'll burn after hours. Look at my hands. They're as good as new or as good as old. I mean, they're as solid as a rock now. I can play my stringed instrument. Let me see. Let me see if I can... Let me see. Strum. Strumming, strumming. Let's move the mic back. Slumming we will go to find that Romeo, to take him from his rank. That mindless sort was blank. I'll tip a glass or two and sit beneath the blue. The day will not be still. I'll jump the gate to will and then drop down hard. I'm glad he cannot see very far. I'll sneak upon him now, and he will not bend or bow. And after yonder he'll go. I will not let him know. Well, we have had to stay on sticks on Mortar's way. Let's stand the test of time. Ancient one is mine. I'll cut from starry skies the day he was born or dies. The time is now at hand, I will not take or tend. The enemy instead has harmed the innocent. So mourn not, fatal kind, they do not have you in mind. They burn to gain and harm, their end is to disarm. La la la. We will no longer let them harm. The enemy is their charm. La 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 la. La 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 la. All together now. La 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 la. La 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 la. They do not coax or lure. They have had their day, good sir.
Excellent. That was awesome.
That was a nice one when it comes up.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
Well, I learned a new word today. He said the word sot, S-O-T, and I was like, well, what does that mean? I said, I must have heard something wrong, so I looked it up, and it's a drunkard.
Yeah, like a lush.
Yeah. Well, that's Dionysus. I was like, oh, I didn't know that word. I had to look it up.
Sometimes we also say sod, and I think that might have something to do with something else. But people are called a silly sod, but silly.
And he called a slimy gizzard.
Oh, brilliant. Well, a gizzard, of course, is when you strip a chicken, the gizzard is the throat area.
Yeah.
Yeah, the sod and slimy gizzard. The Baphomet, his dirty yard worker.
His dirty yard worker. Yeah. That's what he called him.
So it was interesting. He said, I heard he had something to do with the London fire, the Paris fire, and the New Orleans fire. And the list goes on. So,
wow, yeah, I know. Yeah. Well, New Orleans burnt down a few times.
Yeah, several times. It's a wooden, sub sea level built, town, isn't it?
Well, I went there and they like making, I did some fine dining there. I happened to be there with some friends and, it was almost like, oh, you have to go to this place and just see how it is. And they cook with this big flames coming out of the pan. They like to burn with alcohol, whatever. So they said this was the cause of the fires here in New Orleans is the way that the people, were cooking and all that. But I just didn't agree. I don't think that was it. I think it was something more deliberate.
Mm.
Yeah.
So
yeah. All right. So the next hour we will have questions and answers. We're going to be visited by some of our friends, and who are going to come in and ask some questions. Hopefully, I have the answers for them. As I try answers from the universe, right? As I try to answer the questions, because I channel, but I don't always memorize everything that they tell me. So I do my best. Bear with me, and we will be back in a few minutes for our music hour. We have a few tunes. So stay tuned. We'll be back in the second hour.
Okay, and welcome back, Jess.
Okay, thank you, JP. And so we're here with a few different people, and unfortunately I can't look at the questions in the chat right now. So if maybe someone can share that with me if people have any questions. But today is a Q&A day, and we have some guests here. We have Ray, we have Christina, we have Devin, we have Ro, and of course we have JP. So We could start off by each one if whoever wants to ask a question regarding the Andronicus transmissions.
Okay, I'll start off. Right.
Okay, Ray.
Right. First of all, I want to say, hello, Jess. Hello, JP. Thank you very much.
Hello.
Hi, Ray.
Jess, your information is for all of us. So when you start the show, it is for all of us. It's for all the souls who wants to come in to listen to it. So I'd just like to say that we are all for you, here for you. If we wouldn't be in this place now, so don't think that you're on your own, and take no notice what other people say. Anyway, let's go to very interesting what Andronicus was doing. Bit isolated, wasn't he, today?
Yeah, he was. And thank you for those words too.
No, you're welcome, because anyway, it's like he wants to sit around a simple campfire on his own. I'm not sure what he wants to do, and think on his own. Maybe is it diocese? What he wants to do with him? Maybe.
I think he wants to just get back to a simple life. It's when things get really complex for him, he just wants to pull away. I think the happiest that he was ever is when he was kind of in a community living experience where he was with his friends from Andromeda, and they would share food, they would sit around and talk, they'd have a campfire.
Yeah.
They kind of, work together in a sense of kind of social, maybe, and I don't know. I mean, I'm just guessing, it's kind of the music thing. It sounds very hippie. It sounds really, really hippie, but that's why he blended in so well. This was really his element.
He's a very confusing person, isn't he? He doesn't know what he wants to do, does he?
He's exploring.
He's happy with his doing his plants.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's happy when he's doing he loves plants, he loves nature, or things that are created by the universe. Yeah.
And like you say, as you and JP was talking earlier, it is confusing when he comes in as Andrew and John, the past, present and future. And sometimes, I mean, you say you got confused. We totally get confused. So when he comes in as Andronicus, is he coming in as the now, or the present, or the past?
When he comes in as Andrew or Andronicus?
Or Andronicus.
Okay, when he comes in as Andronicus, he's talking to me in real time, but then he may also be linked to a past or a future. But typically it's in real time when he's talking to me, whereas I really feel the energy of talking to someone way in the past. It's really hard to explain, but when I'm talking to John, his other aspect, it really feels like he's in this role of being a scientist. When I talk to Andronicus, he's being his full self, he just the way he is, the way I know him.
Yeah.
When I talk to Andrew, I feel a little uncomfortable. Almost like he's kind of feels a little bit more like, I don't know how to say it, more like an ET.
Yeah.
And he feels more like he is observing us, and there's a disconnect between him and I. I don't feel the warmth that I feel when I'm talking to Andronicus. So, when he said he was leaving, I didn't really I felt like maybe he needed to go through this other process because he felt a little bit too distant to me. But it's definitely something in the past. He stays there. He doesn't really go and travel in the future. And he seems to be in one location. Same with John. They seem to be fixed in one location. But Andronicus drifts. He's in all different places when I talk to him. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Yes. Great. I just have one more question because I know other people are waiting.
That's
Rhodan,
okay.
Rhodan, it was such a great, what he said. We have climbed a mountain and he's held his wind, his back to the wind. Do you think it's the wind change?
Yeah, it might have been figuratively but it also might have been literally, because he's sometimes in non-time space.
Mm-hmm.
And so he can be in like the great void or, different areas of our timelines. And so, he comes in with a mighty wind. He comes in with lightning or thunder or, some of the elements. Yeah, it's a sort of a power energy. And so, he held his back to the wind, saying like it didn't matter what kind of force came in. He was going to stand strong. And, that was the impression I got.
The impression I got that what he's saying, that we have climbed the mountain. And
right.
We can see the other side. That's the impression I got, and I thought it was lovely.
Yeah, it is, and I like that you saw it that way, because I didn't think about it, but yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. It's like we've been climbing the mountain for years and years, and now we can see the green grass on the other side. That's the impression I got anyway, so thank you, Jess.
Well, they say that...
Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, I know there's other people won't have the chance, but that's the impression I got.
It is, and it was... I really felt a sense of reward, knowing that we had kind of passed a point where, we were held back on multiple occasions, with humanity, being able to go to that next level of, consciousness. And I believe, according to him, and I trust in what he's saying, is that we've achieved that finally.
Yeah, I think that truly, that is what he's trying to say to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, who's next? Is that Devin?
I can. For those of us who feel a connection to the beings in the transmissions known as the Titans, where can we find information on their origins and culture, like in one book? I understand there's likely not to be.
I think the Nordic myths talk a lot about, the ancient Vikings and then those that are connected to the lineage. I think that there is information, maybe not even in English, maybe, in German or some of the Nordic languages. There may be some history there. I know that some people have shared with me some things in German that were quite interesting, and some of the stories. I don't want to use the word lore, because I think the stories are based on situations and truths. I know that they talk about the Titans in the Greek and Roman myths, probably in Ovid, which is one of the ancient historians that talks about the history of the Titans, and how that the wars go on in these other upper regions, and as it is above, so it is below, and there was definitely a war. Some people interpret that the Titans as Nephilim or some of the others. I don't believe that they're the same. But there is information, probably if you look online you can find it. But I never thought, if anyone asked me, would you be channeling some of the information about the Titans in your life, later on in time, and I would have never believed it. It wasn't anything that I realized that I was connected to. And what's interesting is people like yourself are now finding how connected you are to them as well. And there was, I think, poor information saying that they were just evil and they needed to be trapped. And I think most of them are just, another group of beings.
The Masons.
Or like, the negative aspects of the Titan Titans is from what Dionysus has done.
Yeah, well, there's always going to be those that kind of ruin it for everyone. And if he did manipulate some of the Titans to join in and participate in what he was doing, along with pulling them away from Andronicus, like you said, and kind of taking over the galaxy in a way, as well as Ares. It seems like Ares was participating in some of this stuff. Yeah, I'm sure that there are battles, and there are probably battles now as we're speaking, because they don't seem to, the temptation for power has always been an issue, not just for us as humans, but, I do see that we're very, very close to some of these beings. And so whatever they're tempted by, we're tempted by as well. Like Dionysus' problem with being a drunk or promoting drunkenness, and, some people have that problem here. So that, it's just a lot of issues that seem to parallel, but, yeah, I hope that answered your question.
Considering unconditional love and forgiveness, do you think that forgiveness and healing are possible for Dionysus?
Forgiveness and healing is possible for everyone. I think that he is not just necessarily evil, but in a state of madness. And when a person is pushed to a limit and sometimes they break. I don't really know and fully understand his condition, but either way, he had to be stopped, because when you have someone that's quite powerful and then they lose control, then you have a serious situation. And so, and I'm going to go out there and say that, when you look at North Korea, my interpretation is that man that is in charge of North Korea has broken, and he's not thinking well. And so, then keep it all, you shouldn't have a person like that in power. And that's what happens at times. And you can see some of the rulers of our history and even present day that they lose control, but yet they have access to all sorts of power. It becomes a very dangerous combination. So yes, anyone can have forgiveness, but what you want to do is take away the toys and the weapons and let them think about what their problem is, away from everyone else that can be harmed. and then something like that. Meanwhile, it's trying to protect everyone in the process.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. One last one.
Sure.
What is Borkum up to?
He hasn't been around for a while. I don't know if he's far away or what's going on, but you liked Borkum, I imagine.
Mm-hmm. I like them all.
Yeah. Well, Borkum's kind of fun. Mm-hmm. And he kind of would just kind of get into things and go in and out of realities. And they had him going further in the future and trying to manage the reptilians. And I think he did a good job of, because I think he was their friend, he kind of worked with them and didn't, maybe help them to calm down. They too were a little bit out of control. And so, but that, I haven't heard much from him. I'll look into it. You're one of the many that have asked about him.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So,
I could go.
Christina. Sure.
You can hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. So I do have a question, but it's going to come across as a little bit of a commentary summary until I get to that point. So,
all right, go for it, Christina.
Just hear me. So, the transmissions, we have had some more than a few female voices or beings share messages with us, but a larger percentage of messages are from male characters, or with the exception of Meetis. We've heard of some other aspects, but not necessarily the female aspects of some of the recurring characters. We have heard some of the stories of what went wrong, quote unquote, with the sacred feminine energy. And we can see in a large scale now that the sacred feminine energy is returning to planet Earth and causing huge amounts of healing. I've always gotten a sense from listening to our transmissions that maybe in the future we would be hearing from more female voices via the transmissions. And I just kind of wondered if you had some insight, if you could kind of sense something similar, or what you can share about that topic.
Well, thanks for asking. I've been struggling over that myself. Not really struggling over the whole thing of why I'm not hearing from more females. I think when a person channels, they channel from, whoever connects to them, it's like Ramtha, here it's from Ramtha, and Brad Johnson has, Andronicus, and, there's others that channel, and that's who they channel. And no one really says, well, you talk to, mostly the males or whatever, but, in this case, I do feel very strongly about the divine feminine, and, I have, we had a few different ones come in that were, had some insight. First, we had Alicia, and we also have a group of, from Aldebaran, and I became a little reluctant because it was a little bit negative from some people didn't want to hear because of their involvement with the Nazi Party. But they're all, kind of priestesses and females, and I wonder if that was kind of stifled a little bit because they were not the ones, they did not encourage any wars. They were here to bring in technology and knowledge, and they have their own way of doing things. But I think when some of the, when we were sharing some of their information, I think it was not readily received yet. And so I felt like they brought in quite a bit of, feminine energy. But I have some messages I still have not shared yet from them. So if people will be open-minded and receive and not think of that I'm just promoting the Nazi Party, and I don't want to get into that because I'm not. But, that was an element. There was another group, that I've contacted and communicated with, and they're, Divine Feminine. They're from Zenith. And, this is, an area in the constellation. And, they reminded me of these very, tall, Amazon-like women, and very, very similar to a Wonder Woman scenario. And if not, maybe the inspiration of it. And, it's something that will probably emerge more in time because as the men have had a very, very strong role in the past, the females will then find their place or be able to have more of their voice. But it's not me filtering anything, other than the Aldebaran, which I felt, like I said, I didn't want the repercussions of it, but, maybe I should just come forward and do it anyhow because people are feeling a bit of a void, and it could be them being displeased with me not sharing the information. And then maybe, as the men sort their way out through some of this stuff, that the females can emerge a little bit more, but we'll see in due time. But, keep in mind that this is Andronicus's kind of his group and his information. So, it just so happens that they're mostly men as well. That's the other point. So I hope that answers your question, Christina.
Yeah, I basically just kind of wanted, just to hear your insight on it because I know that that's a question that, can come across for a lot of people out there listening and just kind of wanted to hear it from your own voice. And I thought, well, I hope that because it's not called Andronicus transmissions that, we've got some females not wanting to share. But anyways,
it's absolutely, it's good. It's good to ask.
And I guess the other thing I wanted to mention, that dragon, Swilu,
yes.
that was a powerful transmission. It also makes me think and I don't know if they're related, because I guess the dragons sleep lives particularly on Earth, but that there's just the story going on that the dragon blood or the dragon DNA was stolen, and that's where the reptilians came about. And I just wondered if that Andronicus transmission where he talked about how they were betrayed by the dragon mothers that used to kind of take care of them when they were going through a deep sleep, if that has anything to do with the DNA being stolen, if that somehow or another was some form of, or if there's any form of tie-in, basically, to any of that. So,
it's possible that the reptoid species have, somewhere a similar DNA, just as the humanoids do. The dragons come from a planet called Dragon.
Just like it.
And they're not from the same places like the reptilians or the Vincala as Andronicus refers to them as. And the betrayal came after this. Probably they're infected to some degree, but for the most part they're very maternal. The dragonesses were very maternal, and if they as some of these beings would come through, and they would travel like Andronicus, they would encounter other species, and the dragons were one of them, and if they had to go into stasis, they'd find a warm location, and I guess that they were very nurturing and maternal. And I thought that was a really, really beautiful story. That was a very nice explanation, but it's similar. Think about us and our connection to dogs and cats and horses, and it's all pretty much relative. So some of these beings are, more, I won't say pets, but kind of a different, you can still be connected to another species and have a great relationship. So, but the separation was not, I don't think it was, anything had gone wrong other than maybe there was some kind of infection or black goo or something. I have to see what the channel said, because I don't remember everything, believe it or not. I mean, I get the information comes through, and sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, and then I'll have to, ask again and what that meant. So, but yeah, that's a good point. Thank you for bringing it up.
Okay, thanks.
So, is any, I don't know, Rolf, did you have a question for us today?
Well, not necessarily a question, more like a comment. Just like JP, I was very moved by what Rhodan shared with us today. It was beautiful how he is constantly empowering us to keep moving forward in the proper direction, keeping the intention for the highest potential for all of us in mind. And now we're getting like confirmation that it's actually working. We're doing the right thing together, and so yeah, I thought that was very nice to hear as well. Of course, Andrew said it as well, so it was nice. I think I saw a question in chat from Rose Violet, who said she would like to hear about Petra.
Yeah, Rose Violet and I had a discussion about Petra before, and Petra was very interesting because she was like, she was in a stasis, and I literally saw their reality when they woke up. Her and her husband. Her husband was a giant, and she was small, probably more human in scale. And she was challenging me, and she was very bold, but she was, definitely of the old lineage of, I won't say royals, not the way the royals are now, but the way that they were before when you were a ruler over a nation. And she was questioning who I was, and we had that conversation. It was very, very interesting. But yeah, Petra is another female that was very strong, and we did channel her as well. So people don't realize, from week to week, I guess percentage-wise, but there were quite a few females that came through in time. Thank you for that, Rolf. And did you have anything else that you wanted to share, or?
Not really.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And I don't know if we have any more messages in the chat room, but anyone else have any other questions?
Yes.
While we're here.
Yes. Right.
Okay, Ray?
Yeah, hang on. The latest group you just at the end of your transmission today, the new group, they're here.
Mm-hmm,
sorry?
That's the Triforce Conglomerate group?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, how do you perceive them? Because they said that they're here to teach us and rather not lead us. So, a bit more interested on something on that sort of subject. I mean, they seem like a group that wants to come in and help us rather than take over us.
Right. I think what we're going to find is that when a lot of these really aggressive species that are trying to control, or even the cabal or whatever energy that is, when that kind of goes in the background,
yeah,
and then the subtle ones.
Yeah, what I'm saying, how do you address a group as benevolent or nevolent?
How do you address? You mean like how do I interact with them?
Yeah. How do you do it personally? Obviously, they're contacting you, right? So you got. How do you feel it within yourself? How does it work within yourself that this group is for my benefit or not for humans' benefit?
I can tell immediately, and it's something that's innate, and I am an open channel, so I get, and some of these species can be very, very tricky and very seductive or hide their agenda
That's why I'm asking.
Right? Yeah.
Because a lot of people do say, oh, this group comes in, this group comes in, that tells you this. So, it's like reading emails, which one is true, which one is not, as to a normal person.
It's tricky, Ray. It really is. You kind of have to go through a process. Immediately, I can recognize some of them, and others, I'm not sure. But I listen to their message, and then I feel their truth when they're speaking.
Is it like a vibration?
It's like a vibration, but it's a sense of knowing. I do think I have a bit of a filter that allows me to kind of assess that there's truth in what they're saying, but not to, of course, predict that they're going to be 100% good in the future, because that's kind of a free will thing. Even the ETs have free will.
Sorry. So, like, if someone comes in and speaks to you, you listen, and then you draw back, or
I listen, I step back, and I assess it, and then I ask if they're okay. And I will not bring anyone in that I have questions or doubts about. Yeah. Not at all. No. So and like I said, even a good could be bad, or a bad could end up being good. It's tricky.
Like you said earlier, he was in your kitchen or bathroom, and they came in, didn't they?
Well, yeah, I was in the kitchen. If they come in the bathroom, they're in trouble. Kidding. I was in the kitchen. But you're in the kitchen making some builder's tea. Maybe they thought they were in the wrong neighborhood.
and all of a sudden, you're making that builder's tea wrong.
I know. Wait a minute, excuse me. Pardon me, I want to destroy your planet, but wait a minute. Particularly because you're putting the cream in first. Not the milk.
Right.
Did you say cream?
All right. I know, I crossed the line again.
Exactly. But
This is reason to destroy you.
they just sort of pop it into your mind, sort of thing, wherever you are, wherever you're doing, and you got to decipher: is that beneficent, or is that negative, or is that true? Is that right? Is that wrong? On a split second, how do you do that? That's what I'm saying.
Ray, I can't, the only way I can describe it is I can see them and I can hear them. And then I have a strong sense of knowing. I get the three elements going on. So when Aries popped in, I knew exactly who he was. I could see him.
Aries, he's not very good, is he?
No, he's been doing some really bad things.
Exactly.
And I looked at him.
So he divided himself in four, as you said earlier.
He did, and he was working through a few different celebrities, which I dare not mention their names.
Well, we'll leave that to a later time, and we...
maybe. I don't know if I feel comfortable enough to share that. But he definitely moves. They move through celebrities and people that are powerful. And the people that are powerful usually open up because of, and this is where it gets tricky, because of, I don't know, maybe they're walk-ins.
Is he jumping bodies?
They jump in bodies.
Yeah.
They jump in bodies because some people are very much into, recreational drugs and alcohol, and, negative beings really love using a body that has access to a lot of things.
He must be using mine because I do all. But he can't me.
You're not really in a power position. If you get in a power position, then you're much more interesting to them. But these are people that do things to excess, and so they, or there's an agreement that this is their, one of their expressions here on the planet. I don't know exactly how it works out, but I do know
there was another one. Was it another one you spoke to? Way back. Helios. Do you remember?
Helios.
Do you remember that one?
Yeah, Helios is the sun god. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. Now, I was listening to another program, and anyway, some other girl channeled him, apparently. And Helios is really a Greek name for someone who's been bad.
All right. I don't know. I've never heard that before. And Helios is probably one of the purest of the ones that I've met.
Yes. Apparently, he's saying they use his name to be bad. But the black arts usually takes something that's good and turns it upside down to use it as a negative. Exactly. Yeah.
They take the power and they try to...
He was saying that he was taking my name and using my name. He's a Greek god. Am I right? At the time, he was Greek, one of the titles, obviously. Yeah? Are you there? Hello?
Yeah. Who's missing?
Well, Jess, obviously.
Her line is like blinking or something. It's not fully turning blue, so something's wrong.
Well, it's the end of the hour, so it's not too bad, Jay. If they hit us. They only knocked 3 minutes off us.
So,
Sorry,
Jessica, are you still there? We're gonna
Can you hear me?
Oh, there you
Yeah.
are. There you are. We got to wrap up now.
Okay, well, thank you. And what I was saying is, if anyone's channeling Helios, the way to know if they're truly hearing from him is that he's benevolent. He's very good.
Yes, I know.
Okay.
I've been listening to this girl. Thank you, Jess.
Thank you, everyone. And we've had a wonderful show. Thank you for
Thank you,
everyone
JP.
joining us in the questions. Thank you, JP. See you next week.